Welcome to Putting Out Fires. I'm Assistant Chief Scott Shoneman, and today I am joined by a very special guest. He is the Assistant Chief of the Communications Center, Sean McLaughlin, and the Kansas City, Kansas Fire Department has been recently recognized by the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch as an accredited center of excellence for emergency medical dispatching, which is very prestigious. KCKFD is the 363rd medical ACE in the world, and we are here to talk about that. And thank you so much, Chief, for joining us today. Thank you for being on the episode of Putting Out Fires.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations is the first thing I want to say to you and your team. What does this accreditation really mean for the people who call 911 in Kansas City, Kansas?
Yeah, so the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch, they are a body that provide dispatching protocols, which are the procedures and the standards that we use when we process emergency calls for service. So what this accreditation means is that our agency has committed to really continuous improvement. We've committed to taking those standards and holding ourselves not just to the standards, but a higher level than most other agencies. So when you make a call to 911 for an emergency service, we are following not only the questions, but we're following them to a higher level than most other agencies. So it's a really big deal. It's something that our division has been working on for quite a while.
Well, again, congratulations. You know, we know that the Communications Center is the first link in the chain of survival. That's amazing. When someone calls 911, which again is the first link in the chain of survival, how do our dispatchers help before firefighters and paramedics get there?
Sure. So that's a good question. So when we start processing a call for service, there's a series of questions that we have to ask. There's information we have to get. And that's important not just for the caller. It's important for the patient. If it's not the caller, if it's someone else calling. It's also important for our responders. And it's important for everyone's safety that's responding to the scene. So what happens, the dispatcher starts asking a series of questions, not only to gain information about the situation, where it is, but also the situation that's going on that we can't put our eyes on. So the dispatcher goes through the series of questions and paints a picture in their mind and paints a picture for the responder that's going to come to the scene. So we start with just getting location information all the way down to what's going on at the scene, and then start getting more detailed, more granular about exactly what's happening with that patient or with that location, with that scene. They also ask important scene safety questions. If it's a violent or potentially violent call, we try to get as much information as we can so we don't have responders going to a scene that is unsafe. So they start processing this call and getting the information that's necessary. And then if it's a situation to where that caller needs specific help, they also have the tools to give them instructions for anything from trying to exit a vehicle to providing CPR for a person that's in cardiac arrest.
Yeah, that's outstanding. I know myself being a first responder for 25 years as a paramedic, those pre-arrival instructions from the communication center, from those dispatchers is extremely beneficial. Just with the information that they provide us, let's just say cardiac, allows the first responder, paramedic, EMT to start thinking, okay, what do I need to start thinking about prior to getting to the scene? So we can start thinking about, the cardiac protocol, whether it's a myocardial infarction or something like that. So it is extremely beneficial, not only to the community to provide them instruction on how to potentially do CPR, but as the first responder arriving, it's helpful for us too, because we could start planning what we're going to do. But we also know things change.
Sure.
And that's why we're able to adjust on the fly. But that information is fantastic.
Sure.
Let people know, why is it such a big deal that the Emergency Communications Center earned this recognition from the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch? So Why is it such a big deal?
Absolutely. So I think it's important to remember that not only are these dispatchers getting this information on every call, they're doing this dozens of times a day. We process anywhere from 100 to 150 emergency calls per day. So when you start applying a system to that, sometimes it becomes routine. Sometimes you fall into, a routine that's probably not the best routine. Maybe we get in the habit of doing things that aren't necessarily detrimental, but we get in the habit of doing things maybe an easier way because it's faster, or maybe it's just easier for us to do things that way. What this accreditation has done is it's allowed us to look at how we do things, make sure we're following the protocols and the standards that we're expected to follow, and use certain metrics to make sure that not only are we adhering to those standards, but we're continuously improving. So it's really just a reflection on our commitment to improve every day and make sure that we're, like I said, not just adhering to the standards, but always trying to do one better than what the actual standard is.
Right. Good. So what does this say about the professionalism and training of the dispatchers that we have here at KCKFD?
I can't say enough about our dispatchers. They're amazing. I say it all the time. It's not a job that I could do or would want to do full time. They're amazing. It's a difficult job because, like I said, they don't have the luxury of a firefighter going to a scene and actually putting eyes on a patient. Mm-hmm. They can't paint the picture through their eyes. They have to paint the picture through words. So they have to get a really good base of information and then use that information the best way they know how to give the proper help, not only to the patient, but also to the responders who are ending up showing on scene. So to be able to do that and to do it while following these standards, while having, tons of different things happen around them, listening to radio traffic, more phone calls coming in all at the same time. It's really a testament to how professional they are and how well they do their job. I can't say enough good things about them.
Right. Absolutely. How does this accreditation that you received help firefighters and paramedics do their jobs better once they're responding to a call?
Sure. So that's a really good question. So like I said, we have a series of protocols, a series of standardized questions that we use. And these are questions that not only are the industry standard, they're time tested, they're internationally recognized. So this system is used throughout the world. It's translated into many different languages, and it's been used for decades. So it's really time tested, and it's proven to work in as many situations as they can possibly fit into it. So what that means is that when our paramedics, our firefighters arrive on the scene, they can be sure that they're getting the information that's necessary to help them start their evaluation, help them start their treatment of the patient. It's really important to also remember that scene safety is always important for people arriving into an unknown situation. So we try to get all that information for the responders before they arrive. Make sure there's not a potentially violent situation. Make sure there's no weapons that they're going to be walking into, violent, possibly psychologically unstable, patients or bystanders that they're going to have to deal with. We try to gather all that information and then push it out to them before they arrive. So like I said, it just kind of gives them a head start and a jump start on what they're going to be dealing with once they get there.
Right. And I could tell you again how much we appreciate that. I remember many situations where the dispatcher alerted us of a potential dangerous situation. So we were able to stage and wait for law enforcement to secure the scene because safety is the number one objective of our members and, of course, the community. So we appreciate the dispatcher providing that information to us so we can prepare and we can plan. What kind of work goes on behind the scenes to earn and maintain this level of excellence? I know we're talking about accreditation and you've explained, how you got there and what it means to the community and to the firefighters, but what was I mean, what did you have to do to get it?
Sure.
Because I can't imagine it being as simple as filling out an application and submitting it and then finding out that you received it in 2 weeks.
Right. So another good question. So again, all credit goes to the dispatchers. They're the ones that have put in the most work. They're the ones that have constantly, seen the feedback on how they're processing their calls, and they're the ones that have put in the sweat and the hours into improving and making what they do better. As far as how they get to that point, we take a certain percentage of all the calls that they receive each week, and those are evaluated against a really strict set of standards. So that could be anywhere from them asking the proper question to making sure they record the answer correctly. And then things like managing the caller. You get really emotional callers that sometimes they have to manage and make sure that the call's not getting out of hand. Making sure that their tone and their rate of speech is appropriate for the situation, making sure that they're understandable. All those kinds of things. We have a piece of software that we go through and grade those calls, and it tracks all of those metrics individually. We have a team, myself, the rest of the management team, that are all qualified to grade those calls. And then we also have help from the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch. So they're getting looked at from many different places, many different angles. So once all that information is put into the system, then we can pull reports. We can see trends on different things. Maybe we need to work on new protocols that have come out, maybe changes to protocols, the things in the medical community that have caused changes within the protocols. All those kinds of things, those are looked at, and we try to make those changes and those improvements incremental. We don't try to throw a lot of information at them and tell them they're doing it wrong. We always want to make sure that we're using strength-based feedback. We tell them what they're doing great, and then we suggest changes on how we could do it better. So we take all of that information, give them feedback, and then constantly, week after week, we're just trying to make improvements from the week before. So we've been doing that piece now for about 5 years. The Academy, they have a really strict set of standards on what it takes to become accredited. Those standards are almost impossibly high to achieve, but back last spring, we achieved all of those benchmarks for the first time. And then month after month, we just kept maintaining those benchmarks. So it takes 3 months of sustained achievement at that level to be able to apply for accreditation. And we've maintained that level since last spring. So really excited. Once we were able to apply for accreditation, then it was a lot of paperwork, a lot of running reports, a lot of filling out forms, and we've got a binder about that thick for our accreditation application. So we submitted that back in September, and then in December, we were notified that we had been accepted.
So December of 2025
Yes,
is when we received the official notification.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, that does sound like a lot of work that was done by you and your team. And again, tremendous work. Let me ask you one final question. What would you like the KCKFD members and the community to know about the dispatchers who are the first voices people hear during emergency? So essentially, what should our department, our firefighters, men and women in the community, what do you think they should know about your dispatchers?
I would say, like I said before, they're incredibly professional, incredibly skilled, capable professional dispatchers. They're caring. They want to do the best job they can. It's sometimes amazing to me to listen to one of them handle an incredibly stressful situation and handle it like they have done it 50 times that day, because in some cases they have. They can go from handling an unbelievably stressful call to have to hang up that call and take another one right away. So not only is it stressful on them, but they do it many times a day, and they do it with such professional ease that it's pretty amazing to watch. Like I said, they're caring individuals. They want to help the community, and they want to make sure that the first responders are getting what they need to do their jobs too. So we're all part of a big team, and they're just one cog in the wheel and make the whole machine work. But they do an incredibly difficult job, and it's pretty inspiring to watch them work.
Right. I do want to just piggyback off something you talked about, is they could take a very stressful call and immediately have to finish that call and jump on to potentially another stressful call.
Right.
And then while they're doing that, there has to be a feeling of sometimes helplessness, right? Because even though that they're gathering the information, they're giving their crews the pre-arrival instructions, which is all extremely important, as we know. But, a lot of us are guilty of wanting to control a situation, meaning that we want to resolve the situation. And for them, they know that they're helpless because, they're behind a microphone or a phone providing instructions, and they can't directly do anything.
Right.
And so there's that element of it. So how do they manage that part of the job?
Well, I'd say dispatchers today, I would say, are probably more fortunate than dispatchers of the past. We have a fairly robust set of tools that they can use to handle many different situations. So I'm not saying we've got it all covered, because we for sure don't. There's always the unexpected things that you can't plan for, you can't predict. But they do have a pretty wide-ranging toolbox that they can use to handle most situations. The interesting thing is that, as you said, there's a lot of calls that either go beyond the norm or are just so extremely stressful that it takes everything that they know how to get through that situation. Those things happen. And like you said, they have to pick up the phone and go right to the next one, when that one's over. So how they do it on a personal level, I don't know how they do it. They're talented and they're able to compartmentalize one call and go to the other. Right. As far as the technical side, like I said, we have a fairly good set of tools that they can use to get them through that. But something interesting to remember is that, as I said before, they're trying to paint a picture through words in their mind and get a good idea of how they can help the patient or the caller. And they do a great job doing that. But once their piece is done, they know nothing about the rest of what happens with that patient or with that caller. So that part, I think, sometimes is hard when they have no resolution. They have no closing of that book. They just are kind of left wondering, did that patient make it? Were they able to help that patient? Or maybe is there something they could have done better? But that part, I think, is fairly hard, because you just never know what the resolution is to each caller that calls in.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you so much for answering questions on putting out fires, and congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.
For this accreditation. I know that it means a lot, not only to your team, but it's important to the fire department and the community that we serve. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes another episode of Putting Out Fires. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other.